current social and political climate that is categorized by divisiveness and cynicism, it is all the more imperative to uplift and celebrate Dr. King's legacy, as well as the legacy of others that have labored in the past and those that are laboring right now in the present. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have lost hope and that have felt like the work that they're doing has been in vain, and as if all of the accomplishments of the past have somehow been washed away, which is absolutely so far from the truth. I think that reminding ourselves where we have come from gives us fuel for our faith and hope to continue to strive to build the future that we want for ourselves and for future generations. I don't think that Dr. King would want us to give up. I don't think that anyone that has ever advocated for justice, for accountability, for equality would ever want us to give up or to somehow see the current climate as a wall in front of us, as a barrier that we're not able to climb over. I think we need to remind ourselves why we do what we do, and I think that reflecting on Dr. King's legacy is the perfect way to do it.
Hello, we're Chris and Katani Sumner, and we believe it's really important that we continue to honor the legacy of Dr. King in these challenging times. What's a good reason?
And it's great that the term celebrating, but honoring the sacrifices that we have witnessed him go through. He is truly now an African-American ancestor, and we have got to continue to honor the sacrifices of his life, because we're now benefiting, especially in this present landscape.
And it's important that we remember the dreamer. Even though he's not here, we want to keep his dream alive. So we have to celebrate and honor the legacy of the dreamer and keep hope alive.
Because we are a product of his sacrifice.
Hello. Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King did something amazing during the Civil Rights Movement. They partnered on, you do this, I'll do that with respect to the arts. Coretta Scott King activated artists all over the country to support and raise money and come alongside the Civil Rights Movement. We need to take a really good look at what Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King did. They blended a lot of different modalities, ways to do it. Songs, marches, protests, theater, visual art. That's what needs to be activated, and that's what needs to be remembered about the dynamic duo, Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King.
To celebrate Dr. King today is to wrestle with the uncomfortable truths of America's past and its present. King was not the sanitized figure so often presented in history books. He was a man who spoke with relentless clarity about the failures of this country to live up to its promises. He stood at the intersection of America's ideals and its brutal realities, demanding not just reform, but transformation. In the current moment, where voter suppression has new disguises, where wealth inequality continues to rise, and where systemic racism adapts like a virus, Dr. King's legacy looms large. To honor him is to confront the fact that his work remains incomplete. It is to ask ourselves what it means to truly build a beloved community where the very structures of our society are designed to divide, exploit, and exclude. Dr. King knew that hope was not passive. He knew that it required imagination, a refusal to accept the world as it is, and the courage to demand what it should be. His vision of radical love, an America where justice is a birthright, not a privilege, was both a moral imperative and a strategy for liberation. Celebrating Dr. King today, on what would have been his 96th birthday, is not about comfort or nostalgia. It is about grappling with his challenge to us to be bold enough to imagine justice, to pursue it, and to understand the fight for equality is never over. His legacy isn't a closed book. It's an unfinished chapter, waiting for us to write the next line. Happy Martin Luther King Day.
Martin Luther King Day 2025 is a poignant moment for us to reflect on Dr. King's ministry, because we know we're about to enter a moment in history that will be unsettled. We know we're about to enter a moment in history where many will be threatened. Hopefully, though, we're entering a moment in history that will have unprecedented opportunity for justice to prevail in response. First of all, Dr. King is a touch point for the moral dissonance in the American experiment. In his last speech, Dr. King admonished the nation, saying, all we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. But today, when we look over the top of the Bill of Rights, when we look over the top of the Constitution and bring our gaze just above those pieces of paper and look out onto the world in front of us, there is a lot that does not line up. Lastly, Dr. King's work and legacy remind us that freedom is not a destination. It is continuous struggle. Nothing will be handed to the oppressed, and there is no such thing as struggle-free victory. I know it sounds bleak, but I think it is first a reminder not to get too comfortable, but to stay vigilant and attentive to the things that we value most about our humanity and democracy. Finally, I think that it's an affirmation to justice lovers, to freedom fighters, that your labor is worthy, it's necessary, and it's valued.
I chose to participate in this unique opportunity to talk about the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I happened to come out of 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury. It's the church where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached when he was a student at Boston University. I happen to know the Reverend Dr. Michael E. Haynes, who was my mentor. He worked with Dr. King at 12th Baptist Church when Reverend Dr. Michael E. Haynes was a student pastor. I feel that we need to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because he gave his life to help us to understand that we could do better, that our lives could change. All we needed to do was to unify as a people, unify with others who were pushing for justice in our country. And I'm so pleased to have been a part of that history.
On this MLK Day, Dr. King would have been 96 years old. And I think we are called to celebrate him, potentially more deeply than we ever have before. This MLK Day should not be one of platitudes and speeches, and then we all go home. It should be a time of deep reflection on a man who was not just a great orator and visionary, but one who put his life into action. 3 things that I will be reflecting on and want to share with you is the first, that Dr. King was a visionary who grounded not just in what he was against, but really paid attention to what he was for. I believe that is something we all need to do more of. Second, he had a vision of beloved community that made space for everyone at the table, provided that folks were willing to share with each other. And I do think we are called to go deeper in our connection, in our communication, and in building a table that makes space for us all. And finally, Dr. King recognized that sometimes the greatest transformation was possible in moments of deep conflict and tension. And I don't know about you, but I see that as really good news, because the moment that we are in could be facilitating an even better we than where we are now. If each and every one of us leans into his legacy and chooses to live justice in a deeper and more powerful way.
Hi everyone, my name is Cece Graham and I'm here from Hyde Park, and I think it's important to celebrate Dr. King's work in this current political and social landscape because we need leaders who are bold in their leadership, unapologetic about justice, equity, and about closing the gaps to economic empowerment. And the way that we do that is by focusing on how we can share this world house together. Because as Dr. King said, we are all here together and we have to learn how to coexist together. And it's about creating systems and breaking down systematic oppression that doesn't allow all people from all walks of life to thrive. So I am focused on that work, and I'm focused on making sure that Dr. King's memory will stay alive as we continue this work in the city of Boston.